and today's discussion is a hot topic all about assessment and how it got a bad name for itself, essentially because people are having bad experiences going for assessment, whether it be in the process or actually during the exam. And that bad experience can be, self-inflicted, or perhaps, unfortunately, it might have been inflicted on you by someone else. And ultimately, assessment's getting a bad rap because people aren't having fun, they're not having a good time, and it's become a bit of a dirty word. So that's why I wanted to talk about this. I feel like it's a hot topic. I feel like it's a bit of a touchy topic, but I'm going to spin that around and hopefully inspire you by the end to see why I'm passionate about assessment and into it. So today's focus is really on the former. It's about self-inflicted bad experiences in assessment rather than the latter. I have been through 3 assessments myself, and thankfully each time it gets easier and more enjoyable. And I really want to share with you today what I've specifically changed in that process so that it's turned out to be more enjoyable and more fun and not this big overwhelming stress, which it definitely was at the very beginning. So what I'm going to cover today is why we get so stressed and what's causing that stress. And I think that's going to be the same for you and me and everyone else listening and watching. So really to just connect on those things that are causing that stress in the first place. And then I want to remind you of the benefits of why we go for assessment and why we're choosing this path. Because it's always good to, be clear on our intentions and know why we're doing something. And then we're going to look at what we can control and what we can and can't control in that assessment process and how that really affects our mindset and our experience. And, we'll get to start going through, and I'm going to step you through some strategies that I actually put in place so that I'm making really conscious decisions about the choices I'm making in my assessment process so that I'm having a good experience. And then I also want to show you, which I mentioned when you registered, a little bonus, which you'll get a link to and you'll be able to follow up in your own time. But I want to step you through a little process that I go through to create a fun and challenging sequence for my practice when I'm in that assessment mode. Because I find that in that assessment mode, we can really kind of tighten ourselves into a little box. We get really quite rigid. Well, this is from my experience. I can find I get quite rigid, quite narrow in my looking, quite tight in my practice. And so this little strategy will just bust you out of that and get you having a bit more fun, shake things up, and just look at things from a different perspective. So we are going to, that's kind of like my little pre-reel, but let's formally start. And I'll just introduce myself because, as I said, I do know a bunch of you who have joined me, but for some of you, I've never met you before. So let me introduce myself. I am Kate Rosette, and I'm a certified Iyengar yoga teacher, and I'm the founder of yogabranches.com. And I'm also, a mom and a wife, and I really love food, and I like to be critical about food as well. I like to eat food and cook food. It's a big passion of mine. If I'm not doing yoga, I'm probably cooking. But aside from that, I created Yoga Branches to fill a gap that I observed for students who would attending classes at studio and wanted to practice yoga at home, but there was just this big gap of what do I do and how do I do it, and needing support and guidance and community. So that's why I created Yoga Branches, to fill that gap. And a big one about that is creating community. I think community is one of the essential key things to having a successful or inspired and continuing yoga practice. So that's how Yoga Branches started. And since then, I've got the 3 branches have grown from Yoga Branches, and that is the Facebook group, which probably most of you are part of, and how you heard about this discussion today. And then I've got a home yoga practice membership group, which is a monthly subscription to a library of videos that really is for general practitioners who just need that guidance and support and inspiration for their practice. And then I've also got the third branch, the peer practice program, which is a program for teachers, which I'll invite you to join me at the end in, and I'll talk more about that. But for now, let's dive in to today's topic, which is not about physical and verbal abuse. But why I'm bringing this up is because I know that this is a touchy subject in terms of that dirty word of assessment, and why people have been burnt and upset and are not happy with perhaps the assessment process, or the assessment, like assessing and failing or passing, and those decisions that are being made. And I just want to acknowledge that today I've really specifically chosen to talk about the self-inflicted bad assessment experience and what we can do ourselves to change that. But I do want to acknowledge that bad assessment experiences can happen because of external forces and from other people. And if you have experienced any verbal or physical abuse from a mentor or a senior teacher or peers, then that's not okay, and I'm not condoning that, and I just don't want to kind of pretend it's not there or part of this story. I'm acknowledging that, but it's not what I want to focus on today. And if that has been your case, then I really encourage you to speak up and to go to your country's association and talk about it, because it's not okay. But what we are talking about today is what we can do ourselves about the way we approach our assessment, and what decisions we make, and what we can control to make it a good process. So I hope today's discussion will empower you to step away from what's not working for you and to step towards a supportive assessment journey. So let me start by just telling you a little bit about my first assessment experiences, and I'm sure you will be able to relate to these. Well, where do I begin? Let's just say it was really stressful. Whilst I've had positive assessment experiences in the sense that I've passed all my assessments first time, and I've had incredible support from my teachers and my peers, it hasn't been all fun and games. And what I really recognize in this journey in going through different assessments, and I'm currently preparing for another assessment because I love them so much. I'm not saying that tongue in cheek. I really do enjoy the process, which is why I'm here today. But in reflecting back on that process and the assessments I've been through, what I really recognized when I first started was that I made it a huge stress. I gave it so much focus. I put such huge expectations on myself. I became like disciplined to the point of like practicing like an Olympic athlete, like it was out of balance. I would give the assessment so much focus, which meant that my family and friends were being neglected. Like, I'm kind of embarrassed to say that, but to the point that I would just hone in and focus, and like, to this day, my husband still winces when I tell him that I'm going to prepare for another assessment, because, it's been tough. So I just want to recognize there that whilst I've passed and it's been great on that respect, it's not been all fun and games. It's been hard. And, essentially I would say I wasn't practicing yoga as I was preparing for assessment. And I think that that's kind of where we go wrong. The focus is in the wrong place, which is like a passing and not failing, and this sort of outcome goal focus, rather than the focus being on the journey and on the process. And when that focus is shifted, we're essentially not practicing yoga with ourselves or the people around us, which is sad, and why it's not fun and why it's stressful. I need to have a drink of water. I'm going to be doing a lot of talking, so let me pause on this quite depressing image, but one that I found online that really related to me, and I'll tell you why. In one of my assessments, this is me, like it's not really me, but it could have been me. In one of my assessments, I did the practice, thought it was okay, and then the next day that's how we do it in Australia, we do the practice one day and the next day we do the teaching. And I came and did my teaching session and I left, and it's like 24 hours between when you finish teaching and before you get your results. And I just spent that 24 hours tearing myself apart. Like, I just remember being in my Airbnb accommodation, like crying on the bed, just like giving myself a hard time, like all this negative talk about what I'd done wrong in the teaching, what I should have done. In Australia, we have to choose a pose, like they give you two and you have to choose your third pose. I was like kicking myself to death about the pose that I'd chosen and why it was the wrong choice. And basically, I just absolutely tore myself apart, and it was not fun. So, and it was not fun, and it was not necessary, and it was not helpful, and it was not, I was not practicing yoga, and it made the whole thing really, really miserable, especially then to go the next day and pass and just be like, what was the point of that? Like, what was all of that about? And what it was I had absolutely no control over my mind, and it was going haywire, and I never want to do that again. And I want to avoid you or anyone else doing that to themselves, because it's unnecessary, but we can get ourselves so worked up because we don't want to fail. And I just thought I'd share that story with you because I'm guessing it's probably not the only experience that I've had. I'm sure other people have had it. So in looking back at the 3 assessments I've been through, each one gets easier and more enjoyable because I've learned from experience of what not to do. And I really want to share that with you today. I want to share with you what not to do and what to focus on so that it's an enjoyable and positive experience. So don't do that. Don't rethink over and over again about something that's out of your control. Like, you have done the teaching, it can't be changed, it's out of your control. There is absolutely no point in thinking about it. So just a little pause there for a moment, because I can see a bunch of new people have joined in live. I've just started giving a little introduction on myself and my story about assessment. So a little recap on what we've just covered. You haven't missed any of the juicy details yet. I've just been talking about my experience and why assessment has become so stressful, and why it has a bad name, and the sorts of things that we do to create it as such a stressful environment and process. So coming to the end of that, really a huge part of improving our experience of the assessment journey is controlling the fluctuations of the mind and practicing yoga. Let me just check my notes here so that I haven't missed anything. And then I want to go on to what's causing the stress. Because let's just identify the problem first so we know and we're on the same page about what we're talking about. And right now, hopefully I can see the chat if you guys do that, because I'm showing my screen and I've got a few screens happening here. But I would love to, I'm going to share with you some things that I think are what's causing so much stress around our assessment. But I would love for you in the chat box there to type in any things that come up for you that you have found to be really stressful in the journey or the process of preparing for assessment. So please pop them in the chat there now, and if I'm clever enough, I'll be able to see them and reflect back to you. So just to share with you some of the things that I really find to be quite stressful, and I'm sure you can relate to them, and there's a lot. So let me just, I'm just going to kind of run through what I find is stressful in assessment. And, one of the big things is that, we train to become teachers because we're probably changing career or looking for another avenue to work. And so, a big part of the stress comes from that you want to pass so you get your certificate so that you can work and earn money. So there's there's a pretty big stress you're putting on yourself there, and also the process. It's not like a quick, 1 year study and then you test. It's 3 to 5 years study before you test. So there's years of study there that are weighing down upon you. These things just create the stress itself. I remember getting really stressed around the idea of having to teach a certain way at assessment. That really confused me. I still hear it coming up a lot. It's like you have to teach one way in the classroom, and then you hear you should be teaching differently in assessment, because it's a made up situation. It's not real life. So I used to find that really stressful. Like, well, hang on, if I teach like that in class and it being different in assessment, and then feeling like I had to change the way I taught for assessment, and that felt fake and difficult. So that was stressful. I think one of the big stresses is the pedagogy of yoga. Like, there's no right and wrong. There's no answer. It's like this, it's not like this. That's how we learn at school. There's a right answer, there's a wrong answer. The pedagogy of learning yoga and studying yoga and teaching yoga is very different. So there's this whole shift of letting go of this idea of right and wrong, and just being like, oh, this is a journey. I have to experience things, integrate them, and then express them. So that was something new I think we all have to learn if you've been to just traditional school. And what else? There's things like just feeling like you have to perform in class, like perform in the assessment and like learn your lines. Not being able to do the poses. My first assessment, I had a disc bulge and a meniscus tear. So there was like heaps of poses I couldn't do, and that was really stressful, and having to modify them and do them differently, and thinking I'm not doing them right, or I'm not doing them like light on yoga, and so that can be quite stressful. Another one or two I'll share with you, there's heaps, is like, who's going to be on my assessment panel and what poses are they going to give me? And there is so much information to learn. So all of these things are kind of like a mounting stress. And I just can see that chat box popping and flashing. So I'm just going to click on it. Hopefully we don't lose my my share screen, and try and I'm just going to stop sharing for a second so I can see those chats there. Great. Okay, great. So I'm just going in and want to see what the stresses are for you guys. Injuries. I hear you, Tiffany. And as I just said, I had, major injuries when I went for my first exam. So that's stressful. You're doing it differently, and then you're going to kind of stand out amongst this group of practitioners that you're doing things differently, and they're going to be looking at you and seeing and assessing and judging if you're doing it right. It's stressful. The authenticity of practice, absolutely, and I get that, because we have this experience of our practice in our body, and then making it, and it's a public thing and it's a personal thing, and practicing in a group. There's so many factors here. I'm seeing more injuries, and yeah, getting that perfect pose. It doesn't exist. How does that feel, knowing that the perfect pose does not exist? And if we can accept that and know that this is a journey, I think that's a big thing about causing the stress. There's this, like, we feel like there's an end point, and that we need to be able to do something by a certain date, and on that day we have to show that we can do it, and if we can't, then we'll fail. It's a journey. It's never ending. The learning is expansive and limitless, and we just have to totally believe that this is my journey, and on that day, that's what it's going to look like, and that's how it's going to be, and you can't fast track that. So thanks everyone so much for sharing your challenges. I can relate to them, and I'm sure others can as well. I'm going to jump back to those slides. They help me keep on track. Okay, so I'm glad we identified some similar stresses there, and just to, air them, be like, right, like to name it, so it's really clear to you and you know what it is that is causing your stress, so that when it comes up you can identify it and then change track, stop that from happening. Okay, so really that then leads me on to a big chunk of what I want to talk about, which is focusing on what's in our control and stop focusing on what's out of our control. If we went through that list, we would find that many of the things in that list are out of our control. And I think this is a huge crux of where we're going wrong in our preparation for assessment, is focusing on things that are out of our control. And that's just tiresome and pointless. The situation I mentioned earlier about my assessment after the teaching, you know, going over and over and over again what I should have done, what I didn't do, what I could have done better. It's out of my control. It's done. It's hopeless. It's a waste of time. And, you know, to control the fluctuations of our mind and to stop ourselves from going down that rabbit hole. Another example is when you worry about the poses you're going to be given. Like, you know, you can give me a show of hands. I think there's a little button there you can even like press and it waves a hand. Or there's a yes, you can hit that button so I know that you're agreeing with me. But who here has thought they're going to give me the poses that I'm going to have to teach at assessment? They're going to give me my 3 worst poses, like the 3 poses that I do the worst in my practice. It's not really true. That's not necessarily going to happen. But we think they want to fail us. They want to find our sticky point. They're going to give us the 3 poses that I hate the most and I'm the worst at. Like, it's out of our control what poses they're going to give us. I just think there is absolutely no point in thinking about what poses they're going to give you. Just be really confident with all of the poses. Know what's your challenges. Know where you're feeling good and confident. But it's out of our control. So why stress about it? I've done it. I raised my hand to that. I've stressed about the pose they're going to give me. And another classic example, this might be an Australianism, something that we do in Australia, but I'm sure it happens all around, is that you find out what your panel of assessors are. You kind of, I think that's what happens in Australia. You get approved and then you get sent who's going to be on your panel and you get the list of senior teachers. And then, you know, from gossip or hearsay, you start to create these ideas about these senior teachers and who they are and what kind of person they are. And, you know, will they approve your style of teaching? Or you might even think that you have to change the way you teach to please the assessors. You can't control the panel of assessors that you're going to get. You have no effects on them. You just have to rock up on the day and just be like, here are 4 people who are going to look at my practice and make some decisions and support me in moving forward in my yoga journey, rather than this like, oh my God, this assessor's like this, and this one's really traditional, and this one's really strict, and having all these ideas about the assessors. I've done that. So I'm not sure if that's an Australian thing or worldwide, but do you see my point? There are all of these things that we stress and worry about, and they are beyond our control. And we are creating the stress, no one else. We need to focus on what we can control and forget about what we can't. So let's work with what you know and not what you don't know. Okay, next I want to talk about why, after listing out all the bad things about assessment and why it's so stressful, let's just go back to and connect with why we are actually choosing this path of assessment. You don't have to. You could just keep practicing yoga for the rest of your life and grow yourself into your practice. But there's a bunch of really good reasons about why we are going for assessment, and I want to share them with you. Sorry, something just popped up on my screen. I'm just going to make that go away. Cool. So, and these are things that I feel passionate about, and this is honestly like why I keep going back up for assessment, because the personal development and growth is huge. I just can't believe myself at the end of an assessment, how I've pushed myself, but in a way that's like, you know, growth, like life-giving. It's life-giving at the end. You're like, wow, how far you can come in your physical practice, in your mental approach, in your understanding of the asana, in your understanding of the philosophy, in your practice, and in your teaching. It's huge personal and development growth opportunity. That's why I keep signing up. And then there's a whole bunch of other reasons, like learning this fine art of teaching yoga and the fine tradition of it, and receiving the gift of yoga and being able to share that with other people, which comes from, you know, being really focused and following a path. Sure, you can share yoga by just being a practitioner and sharing it with others, but it takes it to a whole other level when you study it and then being able to deliver it. And, you know, yoga, the potential of physical and mental health into old age is huge, and that's going to come by practicing, but everything's like up to notch in terms of actually studying it. One thing I love about the process of yoga, of the assessment, is the clarification that comes in my study of really like honing down on the asanas and the poses and getting so much more understanding. Not saying I get it, I know that pose, because you will never get a pose. It's going to be expansive and always changing depending on your age, your body, the day you're practicing, and the depth of the pose. But I love the depth of understanding that we get from studying the asana in assessment, and that clarity that you get around the poses, which then feeds into your practice and your teaching. And then, you know, there's some just more logistical benefits of going for assessment, like the credentials to teach and earn money doing what you love, and being able to carry on the tradition and uphold an incredible and excellent standard of practice in the Iyengar method. I think that's a pretty big one. This assessment process keeps this method really high in standard. So now we're clear on why we're going through and choosing to go on this assessment process, and it helps us to keep those positive things at hand, as well as having, you know, clear and positive intentions about why you're choosing the path and deciding to go for assessment, because you actually have to make that decision at some point if you want to become a yoga teacher. So it's good to hold those things in mind, but we can also take steps in the process. So we can also, in choosing to go for assessment, we are choosing these things and we're making a conscious decision to go for it, but also we can control that journey. And it's not like I'm going for assessment, so now I'm just like under the control of my senior teacher and all the rules and regulations of assessment, and so just, you know, handcuff me now. I think that can happen a little bit. I think we get a little caught up in the guidelines or the limitations and the restrictions and the check box. You have to do this, this, and this. You know, it is still your practice. It is your journey. And I want to empower you to remember that. And sure, we want to abide by the guidelines, but within reason, and so that you can actually own it. So that's what I want to talk about really now, is what you can actually do in the process. I want to step you through the things that we can control to empower ourselves on this journey. And the three that I'm talking about today are your practice, your study, and your planning. So starting with your practice, which really is the crux, the crux of your whole assessment is practice. Let me have a little drink of water. For those of you who have just joined, I won't recap because I've covered a lot of material now. I'll recap at the end. But if you have just joined and something's not clear, feel free to pop that in the chat box there. I'll respond to all of those questions before we end this session. So that chat box is there, pop your questions in and I'll jump in there and check them out at the end. Okay, so your practice is like the the bee's knees of assessment. It's all about your practice. It's in your practice that you are learning and studying and understanding. And we can control our practice. We can control how much we practice, what we practice, when we practice, how we practice, where we practice, who we practice with. And all of these factors have an effect on your experience as a practitioner preparing for assessment. So remember, the whole focus of this is moving away from what we can't control and not thinking about it because it's out of your control, and harnessing and really taking control of the things that are in your lap. So your practice is. So now is a good time to grab a pen and paper if you haven't already. And I'm going to throw a bunch of questions at you that I encourage you to ask yourself and to consider, because they will help you make informed decisions. Like, I'm guilty of this in many aspects of my life, and I think we all are, where we just kind of go along with whatever's kind of handed to us, or just that's how things are. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can actually make really conscious decisions about choices we are making, and you can do that in your practice, and that's going to help the journey be more enjoyable. So here's my question. Who are you practicing with? Are the people you're practicing with creating a supportive environment? Are they intimidating you, putting fear in you? Are they challenging you too much physically? Or are they holding you back? So just consider the group of people that you practice with and what works, what doesn't. It doesn't say, oh, that person's too advanced for me and they're really over pushing me and I'm not going to go there again. You just have to consider the situation you're in rather than just accepting it. Consider it and then make a decision. No, that's great. That person's really challenging. They're much higher level than me. I want to keep practicing with them because they're going to bring me up. Or it's great, I practice with this other person and their levels, they're just starting and they're, have less experience than me, but I really want to practice with them because I can bring them up and that forces me to challenge myself and whatever. Like, I'm just getting you to make conscious choices around your practice, who you're practicing with. The other question to ask about your practice is, what poses are you practicing? Are you limiting your practice to the syllabus? Are you just practicing what's in the syllabus and below, and not extending yourself outside of your syllabus and jumping and practicing? You can practice anything in any syllabus. Like Puna and Abby and Raya, I haven't had the benefit of being taught by Guruji. He passed before I got to Puna, but they say over and over and over again, practice beyond your syllabus, practice outside of your syllabus. So I just challenge you on that one to extend yourself. And also, are you giving yourself adequate restorative poses, adequate pranayama? Are you getting a good balance in your practice? You have control over all of these things. And by creating a planned and organized practice, you'll be able to address these things. If you're just jumping on the mat every day without a plan and a structure, flying by the seat of the pants, you probably don't have this kind of balance in your practice. You're probably just practicing with whoever's available and not making those conscious decisions. And, are you having fun? Are you enjoying it? Because I think that's really, really important. Are you enjoying your practice? It doesn't have to be fun, like ha-ha, but it needs to be enjoyable. You've got to still love it. Otherwise, you're not going to want to do it for very long. And that's not going anywhere. So I can't stress that enough about enjoying your practice. So ask yourself these questions and check that you're making good decisions and take control of your practice and be done with the blaming others and make choices that feel good for you. So that's your practice and how you can actively decide and make it more enjoyable. Now I want to talk a little bit about your study. And I'm just going to kind of separate study into two compartments. There's your self-study, the study you do in your practice in your own time, which you have full control over. And then there's the study that you do in your teacher training program, whatever that looks like for you. For a lot of people, it's sort of just having a block of time with their senior teacher, which is out of your control. Like that block of time, you just kind of have to arrive and do what's said. And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about those two different blocks and how we can get the most out of our teacher training, even though it's out of our control, and then how we can maximize in our own self-study based on what we've learned in our teacher training. So the teacher training, let's start with that because it's out of our control and I don't want to spend too much time on it. The teacher training is, often a block of time that can be a huge learning opportunity where you're having intensive time with your senior teacher and other peers and working through lots of material. But it also comes with frustrations, whether those frustrations be that it's just a limited time and you're trying to cram a lot into that small amount of time. It might be the frustration of there being a really broad range of teachers or trainees and the senior teachers trying to address lots of different levels so that the information can be a little disjointed like that. It can be, teacher training can be kind of confusing, or you can kind of be left with more questions open than answered. And these are just some of the challenges that I've had seen arise in teacher training. And I think the big one for me is not getting questions answered. And I've got a really good tip on that one. So I now no longer, this is what I used to do. I used to go to teacher training thinking I was going to have all my questions answered. And I kind of talked about that earlier, about that different pedagogy of learning from school in yoga and yoga teaching being different. So I used to go thinking I'm just going to learn a lot and get all these answers. And I would leave with so many questions and kind of confused and overwhelmed and frustrated and not sure where to go to from there. So I really switched when I realized there haven't enough time for me to go, okay, something's not working here. You need to change your mindset. So I now no longer go to a teacher training weekend thinking I'm going to get answers. Rather, I go to teacher training completely open. I'm ready to practice. I'm ready to do whatever pose the teacher says. I'm ready to teach anything, to practice anything, and I'm just a sponge. And that is my intention when I go to teacher training sessions. I want to be completely open to lots of information. I'm going to take lots of notes. I'm just going to write down anything I hear or observe or feel and experience. I'm going to have all that information, and then I'm going to take it away and I'm going to practice it. And shifting my approach to teacher training like that really helped stop thinking I was going to get answers and solutions and this is how you do it and things nicely packaged up in a box. Like, that doesn't exist. So letting go of that, being a sponge, and then the beauty of that is that you can take that, all those notes, all of that practice, all of that teaching, all of that work from your teacher training into your own practice, which you have full control over. In terms of you can control when and how long, we've already talked about that, all of those factors of your practice. But also in your practice, you can just explore and practice, like dive in and be curious and try this and then try it another way and try it another way and do it this way and do it like that and make your own discoveries in your body so that then you're developing your own understanding, you're developing your own answers, and then this feeds into your teaching. So it's really empowering to approach teacher training like this and to approach our own practice like this. I just remember as a first timer really wanting to be given the right answer and being shown this is how you do Setubandha. Like, I just wanted there to be one safe way that I knew I could do it and that would work. And you know what? There's no right or wrong. There's no yes or no. It's like this or it's like that. There is many, many ways. And knowing that and accepting that is going to help you to break down that barrier and be able to just explore the information you've given, filter it, and then make it your own. Okay. Lastly, I'm going to talk about your plan. We need strategies. So we've gotten all this information from our teacher training. Then we're going onto the mat and we're allocating really specific time to practice that, like assessment practice time. I hope you've got that in your schedule. That's really key. Having time every week that you set aside, which is not your regular practice, it's your assessment practice. It's like where you have all the books out around you and you have your notepad and you try lots of different things and you take notes. So this is quite a different way of practicing. Go on about that, but like a little detour, I realized maybe you don't yet have that in place. So you need to have strategies and plans and things in place to help you organize all of this information that you get in your teacher training and that you learn in your own practice. And there's lots of different ways to do that, and you need to find a strategy that works for you. And mine's constantly evolving and changing. When I first started, I mean, I'm a big note taker and a big kind of organizer as it is in terms of all of my stuff and content and brain. But when I first started, I really needed a strategy for the information, so that I felt like there was so much and it was going in and just going out, and then I'd learn something and I wouldn't remember it in my practice, and it was kind of just disjointed. So when I first started, I had like little cue cards for each pose, and I would, if I practiced something and discovered something or understood something different, I would make a note on that card, and I'd have those cards available, so the next time I was practicing that pose, I could just flick back and go, oh yeah, that's the same. Oh no, it's different now, it's changed, I'm now having this understanding. And so it's evolving, but I would kind of take notes and have it in a system that I was able to kind of track my progress and hold that information. And that's kind of evolved over to having spreadsheets. That sounds pretty nerdy, I know, but yep, spreadsheets. So you have every pose in the syllabus, and then you have like notes on them. And now it's probably, I'm a little bit even more, not less organized, more relaxed and more trusting actually in my experience and my body and my knowledge. So a lot more now, when I go to a class or I'm in teacher training or I do something in my practice and I experience it in my body, there's more trust that it's integrated. When you first start, it's not integrating, it's just information. The more you practice, the more you study, the more that integrates and it's in your body, so that next time you go to do it, it's just there, it's like at your fingertips, and then you're able to teach it because it's there, it's part of your understanding. So that's kind of been my evolution of it. But my point is, you need to have strategies in place to organize your information, your notes and your study, and also strategies, like I said, like having allocated time for your practice, and time where you plan what you're going to do in that practice. So structure, strategies, plan, organization. I love all those things. Some of you may not, but they are definitely key to making it a more enjoyable process and removing the overwhelm. I think that's a big one, removing the overwhelm, because there's just so much information, and how on earth are you going to retain it all? So whether you're taking notes or organizing your study or planning your time, you need strategies to keep you on track. So this can be particularly helpful if you're overwhelmed by the information. I just mentioned that. I just want to clarify. If you're in that category of going, oh my God, overwhelmed, you need strategies. I really like it as well, because when I go to assessment, I want to be sure that I have done absolutely everything I know was in my control to do before I go. And so I want to cross all the T's and dot all the I's, and those strategies really help me to do that. All right, we are moving along, and I just want to do a little recap, because after the recap, I want to do three things. I want to answer your questions. I want to share with you my little fun strategy for creating a fun and creative, playful sequence. And I also want to tell you about the peer practice program and how you can join me in that. So a quick recap. It's about the journey, not the end point. And to shift your focus so that you take the pressure off yourself about it being an endpoint, about being a pass, about being a certificate, and really focus on the journey, and take the focus off there being like a perfect pose at the end, or it being a certain way, and focus on the journey. And focus on what you can control, and check your mindset. And our mind can quickly just burrow down into something that's out of our control, and it can just pull us down and pull our energy down. And it's the quicker we realize that and identify it, that we can realize, oh, I've followed that route one. I don't want to go there. What can I control? Where do I want to put my focus? So making conscious decisions. This will empower you to really take this process on and enjoy it and feel like you're in the driver's seat rather than just being dragged along. In terms of your practice, creating a positive practice environment, consciously choosing a practice environment that you want to work in, approaching your teacher training open, not expecting answers, just be willing to take lots of information away and practice and make it your own. And then lastly, to get some systems in place so that you can track your progress and tick off your checklist and know that you've done everything in your power to be as ready as you possibly can. Okay, I still want to answer your questions, so I'm just going to before we answer the questions and I show you that little strategy for creating a fun and challenging sequence, let me tell you about the peer practice program. I would really like to just invite you into this group today and tell you more about how it evolved, why it evolved, and what you can get in it. So I created this program for all the reasons above. I wanted peers to practice with. I wanted people I could talk to about the challenges of the journey of preparing for assessment. I wanted to be able to share my learning. I really wanted to be able to talk about the details of yoga, like the nitty-gritty of poses and how things are taught and how things are practiced. Like my husband or my friends, it's just like, they're not interested in the nitty-gritty and the details. So I was really looking for community. And I have a yoga studio here where I teach, but different levels, different commitments. I just found I wasn't getting as much time to really connect with other people on what I was really, really passionate about. So I created the peer practice program, which is a small group of about 30 trainees and teachers who all get together every single week live via video, and we practice together and we teach together and we discuss stuff and we workshop poses, and it's just all about your practice, your teaching, with this intention of assessment. And for some people that assessment's quite close and looming, and for some people it's like a year or 18 months in the future. So lots of different people at different stages of the journey, and it's people from all around the world, which is pretty amazing. And even though, because of people around the world and different time zones, we can't all join in live at the same time because of the time zones, but a bunch of people join in live who can join because it's a good time for them. It's not like 11 p.m. at night. And then if you can't join live, people watch the replays. There's a library of all of the replays that you can watch. So people get really structured in this program. People get really structured. They have 2 hours every single week that they're either joining a live session or watching a replay, and that becomes their really focused assessment time. So as well as like live sessions where we practice, and you're carving out 2 hours a week for your dedicated assessment practice, and there's a vault of information, of replays, of teachings and pose breakdowns and discussions. And there's so much content there to go through. So I just want to give you like a little breakdown of how a month would look. We tend to have one lead practice session, and that could be an hour. It could be 2 hours. I led a really challenging 2-hour arm balance practice just the other week. So a lead practice. It includes like the replays of the teaching session. So where whoever's live, I delegate poses and we teach them to each other, and then we give each other feedback about what worked, what didn't work. So huge learning there. We workshop more challenging poses and break them down and different ways to approach them. We have discussions on topics that are topical, that are hot, that are on really common things that people want to share on. And also we have the resource kits. And my resource kits are, you know, they're like I'm an organization queen. The resource kits are essentially a lot of the things I've talked about today, about how to structure your time, how to plan your sequencing, how to organize yourself in this, with all of this information. So all of these things I've talked about today, as I said, are part of the resource kits. And even the one I'm going to share with you very soon about creating a fun and challenging sequence is one of the resource kits that is being released this month in the peer practice program. So you might be thinking, how on earth does this all work? And how does it in terms of coming together? So I'm the organizer of the group. I manage the group every month. I create the schedule. I liaise with everyone about time zones that work for them, about session times. I find out what poses people want to teach, what they want to cover, what poses we want to break down, what discussions we want to have. And the rest is magic. I just put all that into I'm an organizer. I think I've said that a few times. I love doing that. So I just gather it all up, put it all together, and then we get together and the magic happens. Like, it works. We are all there for the same purpose: practicing, teaching, talking, yoga. So from there, we just get lots of incredible videos that we can replay in our own time when it's at our convenience and catch up on things. And there's not like this messy library of videos where you just kind of have to scroll through hours and hours of videos trying to find a teaching on Padmasana. It's all time coded. So if you just want to watch the teaching on Padmasana, it's like, oh, that's at 12 minutes and 50 seconds. Great. You can just jump to 12 minutes, 50 seconds, watch the Padmasana teaching, and then get out of that and go into another video. So it's very organized, and it's to be efficient. It's to help you make the most of your time, be efficient in your practice time. So the last thing I want to say about the program is that obviously it's a paid program, and it's $57 a month. And that includes everything I've talked about: the live sessions, the access to the library and the portal. And you can go about it in your own time. So obviously during the live sessions, you get much more out of them, but then you have access to that portal whenever you like to catch up on what's already in there. 6 months worth of material. This program's been running for 6 months, and then everything that gets added on into the future. And what I'll do before I go and show you that how to create a fun and challenging sequence, I'm just going to pop in and give you a link so you can get all the details about what's included in the program and exactly how it works. The last thing I do want to say about that program is that for the next 24 hours, particularly for you guys who have joined me live, you can sign up and get 7 days free. So what it does is it means you register, you secure your spot. There are only 12 places. I keep the group really small so that everyone can be seen and heard and get to go. So there's only 12 places available to register for this opening, this enrollment. But in the next 24 hours, you can register and secure your spot, and you don't pay anything for 7 days, which means you can jump into the vault, get in there and start looking at all the content and see if it's going to work for you, and see if that's the kind of support and organization and planning and structure that's going to help you have a more enjoyable assessment journey. Let me put that link in there, and then I'm going to talk you through my little strategy. Let me stop that. Sorry, I've just got to jump screens around. Give me a second. Open up this one. Oops, I don't want that one. Sorry. Okay, here we go. I'm going to get that link for you and pop that link right now into the chat. Ta-da! Cool. That's in there. There's a bunch of people in here today who are part of the peer practice program. They've joined in. So you guys feel free to pop any comments there in the chat about how much you love the program and what you're getting out of it. I want to answer some questions and then give you that little strategy. Let me just scroll through there and check those questions so I don't miss any. So someone has mentioned there that I got told by my teacher that they will give you Trikonasana if they're doubtful about you. And then I got it. Oh, that's great for the mindset. I mean, that's the kind of shit, I'm sorry to swear, that it drives me nuts about this process. Like, it's like fear mongering. Why? I think we get fear mongered about, oh, this assessor is like this, or this assessor's like this. And if you get Trikonasana, it means they're doubtful about you. So then you get Trikonasana, and then you're just like freaking out. They don't think I'm good enough. And then it starts this, doubt. And that's not, that makes me sad. I'm sorry to hear that. And really, we need to, it's about building confidence in ourselves and being empowered and feeling in control. And like I said, you can't control the poses they're going to give you. So just be really confident that you know them well enough in your body to teach them the way that you want to teach them, because that's from you. They want to see you, I think. Okay. I've just got some people agreeing that they agree with what I was saying. Cool. Someone's going to leave. Okay. And there's a question here. What's the best way to start the process of assessment? I don't have an Iyengar teacher in my town. The first step is to find it. Yes. So that's definitely, let me just be really clear about that. I'm in my junior intermediate stages of teaching and certification. So I'm not certified to be a teacher trainer. I don't have that qualification, so I can't do that for you. And this program is not a teacher training program. It's a peer practice, peer supported program. So if you want to get into teacher training, you need to find a senior teacher, or it's quite different in different countries as well. But you either need to get a senior teacher or a mentor. And the mentor needs to be of a particular level of certification, and then they will support you in that process. So that's really the key thing to find. And I would just recommend you go to your association. Each country has an association. That association has a list of all of the teachers who are eligible to play that role. So that's where I would start. Okay, the last thing is my little fun strategy. Now, I'm also going to pop in there a link so that you can download this and follow this in your own time. But what I like to do is, and this is like really inspired by my time in Pune, where they kept saying practice outside of your syllabus, which is what we were doing in Pune, or we were being taught poses outside of our syllabus. But they're saying practice. Don't teach poses that are not in your syllabus. You're meant to teach poses that are in your syllabus and one syllabus ahead. But to practice any pose from any syllabus. So what I do, and you don't have to do this, I've done actually all the hard work for you. I've created the whole spreadsheet, and I'm going to put the link in there for you to download. But what you do is you get all of the syllabus, like Intro 1, Intro 2, Junior 1, Junior 2, Junior 3, Senior 1. You can go as far as you have. In this example, I've given you all the way up to Senior 1. And then you have a list of all of those poses in each syllabus. And you go through and you select a pose from each syllabus. And there's kind of the crux of your sequence. And you choose ones that are in a little like similar theme. So for example, it might be something like Utkatasana from Intro. I'm really thinking off the top of my head now. And then you might go for, what about Triang Mukaika Pada Paschimottanasana from Intro 2? And then in Junior 1, perhaps you choose Ubaya Parangustasana. And then Junior 2, you could choose Akana Dhanurasana. And then Junior 3, you could choose Kumasana. And then Senior 1, you could choose Kumasana 2. So you see that I'm kind of choosing a bunch of poses that have a little bit of similarity through them. And then in each level that you grab one from, you're stepping it up a notch. So you've got this bulk then of poses that are going to work together nicely, and they're going to lead up to each other really nicely. And then you top and tail it. At the beginning, put in a bunch of warm-up poses, just some things you need to do to get your body ready. And then at the end, put in your inversions, and then you've got this sequence. This is probably a whole bunch of poses that you don't normally practice, but you make these beautiful links between these practices. You challenge yourself by practicing more challenging poses, and it just becomes a little more fun and really busts you out of that box. I can find that when I'm preparing for assessment, I get quite like, oh, I'm just really focused on teaching and practicing a lot of what's in my syllabus, but we can learn so much from practicing the poses ahead and that are more advanced, and they can really feed into our learning of the poses in our syllabus. So that's why I love to do that process. And now I'm just going to grab that link and pop that in the chat box for you. If there's any other questions, please put them in the chat right now. Let me grab that link. Where is it? Here we go. Copy. I'm pretty proud of my technical prowess today. I managed. I shared my screen. I saw the comments. I posted some links. So hopefully you're all getting them. Can I get a thumbs up that you got those links? Just give me a yes, or a thanks, or a yes, we can see them. So that's really important that you can get those links. There was a comment there. I'm going to take that TY as a yes. It's that like shorthand for yes. Thanks. Cool. Great. So there you have it. There's a link there to the peer practice program, which will give you much more information about what's included. If you have any questions about it, shoot me an email at info. I'm going to put that in the chat as well. info@yogabranches.com. I'd be more than happy to answer that for you. And grab that little resource kit, which is the one that's about to be released this month in the peer practice program. Fun things like that. A lot of them are also quite organizational and strategic and very step-by-step. So in that one there, you will see I step you through it, and there's also the worksheet. So I want you to be able to have like actionable stuff that you can apply immediately into your assessment journey. And I hope that today's discussion has given you that. I hope you've gotten a little bit more clarity about making decisions, about the path that you want to take, and about how to make your assessment journey more enjoyable, more empowered, more fun, so that you come out the end passing or not, but enjoying the process. I'm just checking the comments there. Excellent. I'm just getting lots of thank yous. It was really great. I love having a live audience. Nothing quite like talking to yourself. And just remember, there's only 24 hours to grab that 7-day free trial of the peer practice program. Because these spots will not last every time I open up enrollments, which is only every 3 months. Note that. I only open enrollments to the pre-practice program every 3 months. I won't be reopening until next February 2020. So if you want to jump in, secure your spot. Those 12 places will go. Actually, there's not even 12. There's only 11 left now. Someone's already enrolled. So they're going to go. So if you just want to jump in and check it out, do that in and you get your 7-day free trial. Awesome. Thanks everyone, and I look forward to meeting a bunch of you in the peer practice program very soon. Oh, there's a question. Do you expect to be running the peer practice program in early 2020 next year? Absolutely. It will be definitely running in 2020 next year. Enrollments won't be open again till February, March. It really just depends. I only reopen places when I have a few people who leave. So some people will go for assessment and then they'll take a break and leave. So when places open up, I reopen. And it tends to be roughly every 3 months. Hope that answers your question, Fiona. Okay. And yes, I'm just going to hang out for a minute here because I could see questions coming in. The monthly is, the billing is monthly, but you can cancel anytime. So you'll sign up now, for example, you get your 7-day free trial. If you cancel before the 7 days, you won't be charged anything. And then if you stick on after the 7 days, you get that full 30-day access. If you find it's not working for you, you can cancel and you won't be billed again. So it's no lock-in contract. It's just a month by month, unless you choose, obviously, the annual plan. Then you pay for the whole month upfront, the whole year, sorry, upfront. So you can cancel when you need. And I find that people with the live sessions, people often think, well, if they can't make the live sessions, So many people can't make the live sessions and they stay in the program because the replays are just as valuable. And even if they are only jumping into a live session, like maybe once a month, it's still really valuable. So if you're wondering about the live session times, they do change every couple of months to suit the group and to make sure that everyone's getting a time, because we're working with all different time zones, literally like India, Mexico, the USA, Canada, England, Central Europe, like the whole mix, Malaysia, people everywhere, India. I've got people everywhere. So we're mixing with that whole time zone. So we change the times around to suit your needs. And when you sign up, you're asked a bunch of questions and I ask you what time suits you. So it's a really tailored program. That's why I keep it small and there's limited enrollments. Just a couple more. Nope, that's it. Okay, great. I've answered everyone's questions. I'm going to sign out now. And thank you all for joining me.